Welcome everyone to another episode of Retro Wrestling Reviews. Fredo Esparza here, and this week we look back at the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling February 27th, 1982 show. But before we get to the review, be sure to click that subscribe button. We'll have more wrestling show reviews as well as the Lucha World podcast and other content available on this YouTube channel. This episode of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling was taped on February 24th, 1982 at the WPCQ TV studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. Bob Caudle is joined this week on commentary by Roddy Piper. Sgt Slaughter joins them to open the show and said he was the United States heavyweight champion, but he should be the world heavyweight champion. And later on the show, they would show a video why he should be world champion. First match on the show had Terry Taylor beating Dave Patterson after a forearm off the ropes got him the pin. Dave Patterson would later be better known as David Sierra, the Cuban assassin. Some good actions to start the match with Taylor countering a lot of Patterson's moves. Patterson went for a slam on Taylor, but Taylor rolled through and kept the armbar locked on him. They each threw some forearms. Austin Idol then showed up in the studio and started filming the match with his camera. There was an armbar by Terry Taylor, which Patterson escaped by pulling Taylor's hair. Patterson got in a few more forearms and a hard chop in the corner. He landed a knee on Taylor and went for a pin, but Taylor kicked out. Taylor moved out of the way of an elbow drop and then drop kicked Patterson. Taylor then went for a reverse backslide for a pin, but Patterson escaped. Patterson then went with a backbreaker on Taylor, but only got a 2 count. Taylor made a comeback and slammed Patterson twice. He then climbed to the middle rope and landed a fist drop on Patterson. Taylor then went with a forearm off the ropes and got Patterson in a stretch and into a pin for the win. The next match had Private Don Kernoodle and Private Jim Nelson beat Vinny Valentino and Mike Davis after Nelson got Davis to submit with the Cobra Clutch. Sgt Slaughter was in Kernoodle and Nelson's corner. Davis and Valentino got the match going with them going after Private Nelson's left arm, but he quickly reached his corner and tagged in Private Kernoodle. Quick tags from Sarge's 2 privates. They each took turns attacking Valentino. Valentino made a comeback and slammed Kernoodle into the corner and tagged in Mike Davis. Davis caught Kernoodle with a drop kick and went for a pin, but only got a 2 count. Davis then punched at Kernoodle, but he was near his corner and was able to reach out and tag Nelson. Nelson then attacked Davis. Austin Idol again showed up ringside to film the match. Sgt Slaughter wasn't pleased that Idol was ringside and argued a bit with him. Davis missed a drop kick at Kernoodle. Kernoodle got Davis with a neck breaker and got a 2 count. Kernoodle then beat on Davis and then tagged in Nelson, who got Davis in a submission hold. Kernoodle tagged back in and choked Davis. Don with a cool standing drop kick at Davis. Nelson and Kernoodle then do a double team elbow at Davis. They can't get the pin on Davis, who fought back and knocked Kernoodle down. Davis whipped Kernoodle into the corner, but Kernoodle raised his knee up and knocked Davis down. Kernoodle with a power slam and he tagged Nelson. Kernoodle then picked up Davis and Nelson jumped off the top rope with the clothesline. Nelson then got Davis to submit with the Cobra Clutch. After the match, they beat up on Vinny Valentino. Sgt Slaughter then joined Bob Caudle and praised his new recruits and talked about a match between Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair. Slaughter had challenged Ric Flair for the NWA World Heavyweight title. Flair told Slaughter to get away from him. He then challenged Ricky Steamboat for a title shot if he won, and Slaughter claimed that Steamboat said some mean things to him. They then show highlights from Sgt Slaughter attacking Ricky Steamboat during his world title match against Ric Flair. Nelson and Kernoodle came out to help Slaughter. Flair went over and tried to help Steamboat. Slaughter used the belt to choke Flair and then grabbed another belt from one of his recruits to attack Flair. Steamboat then ran back in with a chair and got all 3 men out of the ring. More wrestlers came out to help Flair and Steamboat. Steamboat then carried Flair to the back. Private Kernoodle and Private Nelson joined Bob Caudle and said Sgt Slaughter gave them strict orders and they will do what they did to Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat to anyone else. Nelson said they were cowards and made Slaughter look like a fool, so they had to get even with both of them. Kernoodle said that all Slaughter wanted to do was congratulate Steamboat, but Steamboat attacked him. Kernoodle said it takes a special man to take on Sgt Slaughter's orders and be a Marine. Nelson mentioned that they will be in the tag team tournament and take the $25,000. Roddy Piper then asked Bob Caudle if he could interview Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen. As he started to interview them, Jimmy Valiant's music started to play. They were talking about the tag team tournament. Jimmy Valiant then strolled out to the interview area. He confronted Hansen and Anderson. Valiant started to brawl with Ollie, and Hansen attacked Valiant. Ollie and Valiant headed into the ring where Ivan Koloff was already in there. Valiant brawled with Koloff and Ollie. Hansen then went in and brawled with Valiant. Piper went wild on the mic. Blackjack Mulligan Jr. and Ray Stevens ran in to even up the sides. Jimmy Valiant was then interviewed by Bob Caudle. He thanked Blackjack Mulligan Jr. and the Crippler and said he'll take on all of them, Ollie, Hansen, and Koloff, one at a time. Next match was going to be Ivan Koloff versus Tony Anthony, but due to Koloff getting involved in the brawl, it was changed. So the next match ended up being Mike George beating Mike Miller after a shoulder breaker, and that got him the pin. Match started quickly with George catching Miller with a backdrop and then getting him in an abdominal stretch. David Crockett joined Bob Caudle on commentary as he replaced Roddy Piper, who was in the middle of the brawl a few minutes ago. George controlled the early action. Austin Idol then showed up again to film the match. George countered a lot of what Miller tried to do. He caught Miller with a forearm. Miller caught George with a shoulder tackle, but got knocked down by George. George then picked up Miller and got him in a shoulder breaker for the win. Ray Stevens joined Bob Caudle, and he talked about Ole Anderson and his gang agitating other people. He mentioned how in the past they tried to injure his tag team partner, Pat Patterson. Ray Stevens was not pleased with Sgt Slaughter and his men either. Jake Roberts then joined them and said he didn't like what Slaughter did when they attacked Flair and Steamboat and said they did a little too much. Roberts doesn't know what happened to Don Kernoodle, from him changing from being a babyface to a heel and joining Sgt Slaughter's faction or group at that time. Blackjack Mulligan Jr. then joined them and said everyone is finding out hard about Sgt Slaughter and his boys and said he was going to get revenge against them. Next match on the show had Ron Richie beat Bill White after a roll-up for the pin. Pretty even match to start. White got in an elbow and got Richie in a chin lock. He got in a hard punch at Richie's chest, but that seemed to get Richie going and he fought back. White got in some more forearms and elbows at Richie. He slammed Richie and covered him for the pin, but Richie kicked out. White whipped Richie into the ropes, and Richie nearly got a pin on White with a sunset flip. White tried to slam Richie, but Richie reversed that and rolled White up for the pin. David Crockett interviewed Ron Richie. Richie talked about what Sgt Slaughter and his privates did when they attacked Ricky Steamboat. Sgt Slaughter showed up and didn't want Richie to talk about him. Richie said that he didn't have to take it and left. Sgt Slaughter was upset that he was talking about him that way. Don Gilbert and Kelly Koniski joined Bob Caudle for an interview. Again, as I mentioned previously, Mid-Atlantic always like to have some of the undercard guys or preliminary wrestlers do interviews, and this time they get to do one. Koniski said he was looking forward to wrestling Stan Hansen and Ole Anderson. Gilbert welcomed Koniski to the Mid-Atlantic area and said he felt they had a shot to win the tag match on this show, which was a funny line for him to say as they head to the match, which led to Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen beating Don Gilbert and Kelly Koniski after Hansen caught Gilbert with the lariat and covered him for the pin. Gene Anderson accompanied Ole and Stan. Ole and Stan with quick tags throughout the match. Austin Idol returned to the studio, but without his camera this time. Bob Caudle asked Idol what happened to his camera, and Idol told him that he was told that a lot of people were complaining about him filming their matches. Idol said he didn't care who complained and thought it was just a lot of wrestlers being jealous of him. Koniski did fight back and got Hansen with the head scissors. Hansen escaped and took down Koniski and beat him down. Ole got in and caught Koniski with a big forearm, but Koniski was able to stand his ground and get Ole in with a body slam. He tagged in Gilbert. Ole recovered and knocked Gilbert down and tagged in Hansen. Hansen slammed Gilbert, and he and Ole just beat on Gilbert, including getting him with a double elbow. Ole then slammed Gilbert and tagged Hansen back in, and Stan whipped him into the ropes and caught him with the lariat for the pin. After the match, Ole Anderson, Stan Hansen, and Gene Anderson joined Bob Caudle, and Ole said that they were going to be the most devastating tag team in wrestling. Caudle wanted to talk about Jimmy Valiant. Stan Hansen screamed at Caudle and told him that they didn't want to talk about Jimmy Valiant. Ole Anderson said Valiant was like several others because he showed off, but it will be the last time he does that. Hansen said it was Valiant's fault for what they will do to him. Hansen vowed that the lariat and the hook were the most devastating team. Austin Idol showed up to close the show. I thought this was a fun show. The matches on the show were mostly just okay, but they had some very good segments throughout, with some good interviews from Sgt Slaughter, Stan Hansen, and Ole Anderson. The segment with Sgt Slaughter talking about him and his privates attacking Steamboat and Flair was pretty great. It also had Sgt Slaughter doing commentary as this whole situation is going on, which of course he's giving his side of the story, which is completely not untrue. From watching the video, you could tell that that's not what's happening. But I thought that was great. The other segment with Valiant showing up while Piper was interviewing Hansen and Anderson, and then everyone getting into a brawl was great. This was a fun show despite not really having a strong match on it. I would recommend watching it. That's it for this review. Be sure to subscribe to the Retro Wrestling YouTube channel, and we'll be back again soon with more reviews.